días. Bienvenidos a nuestro Meetup sobre automatización. Esta es una introducción, pues, digamos, nosotros lo consideramos bastante corta, pero sustanciosa. Y, pues, antes de continuar, primero que todo, como un buen caballero, me voy a presentar yo. Soy Andrés Felipe Cardona, soy un desarrollador con más de 7 años de experiencia. Hace 2 años comencé a meterme por el lado de automatización de pruebas. Fue un mundo al principio un tanto desconocido, raro, por tanto tenía esa brecha con la gente de QA, que entendía como un mundo totalmente diferente al desarrollo, pero fue mucho más gratificante de lo que me imaginé.
Bueno, mi nombre es Juan Camilo Lasterco, ¿cómo están? Yo soy ingeniero de telecomunicaciones, trabajo en desarrollo de software hace como 5 años, hace 2 empecé en automatizaciones de pruebas de UI. Vamos a compartirles un poco lo que sabemos hoy. Ojalá suban bastantes preguntas como al final de la presentación, pregunten lo que quieran, sean muy simple la pregunta, no se preocupen, que si la podemos responder, la respondemos. Bueno, entonces volvemos como lo más básico del asunto, ¿cierto? Bueno, primero, ¿por qué necesitamos nosotros automatizar? Por ejemplo, cuando escuchan automatización, ¿por qué piensa la gente? ¿Qué es lo primero que se viene a la mente? Selenium, ¿sí o qué? Porque usualmente Selenium es como que, vamos a automatizar, entonces la gente piensa, Selenium, ¿sí o qué? Pero resulta que Selenium solamente sirve para una cosa, que es automatizar UI, ¿sí o qué? Listo. ¿Cuál es la cosa? Que resulta que, como le recuerdo la pirámide de pruebas que tenemos ahí, hay otras 2 capas adicionales aparte de UI. Inclusive podemos decir que Selenium es como la punta del iceberg de todo lo que es automatización. ¿Listo? ¿Qué son las otras 2 pruebas que se necesitan? Usualmente son las pruebas unitarias y las pruebas de integración. Como desarrolladores, algunos han trabajado con pruebas unitarias porque siempre les toca hacer por cada cosa que hagan. A los desarrolladores siempre les toca hacer pruebas unitarias. Los que no, mal hecho. Las pruebas de integración son la parte de las pruebas de servicios, pruebas de APIs. Muchos desarrolladores hacen pruebas de integración para sus propios frameworks, utilizan bases de datos dummies como tipos H2, cosas por el estilo. Ya otros automatizadores por aparte, como el señor aquí al lado, hace ya pruebas de API, ya con otros frameworks aparte, pruebas por los endpoints, hace pruebas a montones en ese lado. Bueno, entonces comencemos entonces, ¿por qué necesitamos nuevamente automatizar? Bueno, listo, existe algo que se llama la regresión en las pruebas. Por ejemplo, cuando hacen las pruebas de regresión, en muchas ocasiones, cuando va aumentando el proyecto, digamos que el proyecto lleva 1 año, las pruebas de regresión, ¿cuánto se pueden demorar por ahí? Medio día, un día entero. Y si se falló una cosita y toca volver a corregir, toca volver a corregir la regresión. Eso es un problema indelegable, ¿cierto? Entonces, para eso es que, digamos que una de las ventajas de automatización es que reduce la regresión para los QAs manuales. Los QAs manuales no es que tengan que desaparecer de todo, pues, precisamente como muchos piensan. Pero esto ayuda mucho en el caso de la regresión, en el caso de la regresión para las pruebas. Bueno, entonces dame un poco de los costos, lo que les decía a ustedes. Cuando la gente automatiza, al principio el costo y la inversión es gigantesco, ¿cierto? Ese costo de inversión es gigantesco al principio, ¿por qué? Porque apenas se están definiendo qué frameworks van a automatizar, cómo vamos a automatizar, porque como todo software se tiene que pensar antes de poder verificar un poco, ¿cierto? ¿Qué pasa al final? Después de eso, todo eso se empieza a regresar porque ya todo eso que está automatizado ya está listo y simplemente se empieza a automatizar y nuevo que vaya llegando y se van haciendo regresiones más rápidas. ¿Qué pasa con lo de manuales? Manuales, el principio de la inversión es muy pequeña porque la aplicación, digamos, está empezando, no hay mucho, ¿cierto? Entonces, va a ir aumentando, digamos, de a poquito porque la aplicación también va aumentando, o sea que la regresión, las pruebas para cada ticket van aumentando. Pero en cierto punto umbral, eso se empieza como a aumentar bastante a punto de que el QA manual ya no puede, pues, de tantas regresiones, empiezan a suceder, pues, un montón de cosas y la idea es como descargarle un poco la carga de ellos con esas pruebas automáticas.
Y realmente, ¿cuáles son las ventajas que se pueden presentar de cara a todos los stakeholders involucrados en el proyecto, en la aplicación? Realmente es el apalancamiento. Lo que sucede con el desarrollo de pruebas automáticas es que le estoy dando valor agregado a mi negocio. Estoy entregando productos al mercado mucho más rápido. Estoy desarrollando funcionalidades con mucha más certeza de que el proceso de calidad está asegurado. Estoy desarrollando con tranquilidad. Puedo crear procesos de integración continua, puedo crear procesos de entrega continua. Realmente, con el tiempo, lo que pasa es que las pruebas automáticas nos dan, con una mínima inversión, una cobertura enorme sobre todos los casos de negocio y sobre las funcionalidades que vayan a llegar. Y por supuesto, el resto son cosas que pueden llegar a encontrar en Wikipedia, en Internet. Y es lo típico. O sea, entendamos primero que todo que somos humanos y no podemos seguir probando como lo probamos hace 20 años. No podemos esperar que repitamos pruebas que no llegan a fallar, que algunos test son demasiado difíciles de ejecutar, que requieren hacer exploración, que requieren hacer verificación, preparación de datos. Son cosas que fácilmente se pueden automatizar. Y realmente, pues, recordando cómo se desarrolló todo el Agile Manifesto y el desarrollo de Agile, una de las cosas importantes y que se hicieron notorias en el software es que el software siempre cambia. No se puede esperar que en algún momento hiciste un plan de pruebas, hiciste unas pruebas y diste cobertura completa a tu sistema. El sistema siempre está cambiando, los clientes están diseñando cosas nuevas. Tienes que estar preparado de alguna manera para enfrentar esos cambios. Y entonces nos lleva a la conversación que de alguna manera traté de introducir al principio y es, bueno, cuando llegamos a automatización a veces como que podemos llegar desde dos flancos. Podemos llegar desde quienes somos QA, necesitamos actualizar hacia el lado de automatización, y quienes somos desarrolladores y de alguna manera somos renuentes al parte de automatización, por tanto se involucra como tanto como QA. Se han creado inclusive roles, Microsoft propuso hace unos años un rol llamado DET, Software Development Engineering Testing. Básicamente ponga a un account de software desarrollador y ponga las pruebas manuales, integración, aceptación, exploración, todo lo que usted quiera, pero porque también tienen la capacidad y el criterio de crear frameworks, diseños, estrategias, herramientas para coger y probar sistemas que al día de hoy son muy complejos. Entonces, la realidad es que como desarrollador, usted hoy en día es de hecho un desarrollador de automatización. Como podrán saber, a la hora, como criterio de calidad, a la hora de entregar una prueba, a la hora de entregar un desarrollo, una funcionalidad hoy en día, ustedes pues sí siempre tienen que verse familiarizados con la realización de pruebas de unidad. Las pruebas de unidad son mediante la automatización de las pruebas de escritorio que alguna vez hacíamos en la universidad, por más chistoso que parezca. Y básicamente los desarrolladores son los primeros que tienen que comenzar haciendo esto porque son las personas más cercanas a la unidad, a la mínima unidad indivisible de una aplicación. Es el código. Y si se dan cuenta, si escuchan foros, lo que dicen los compañeros, lo que de pronto llegan en las hojas de vida a empresas y les recomiendan, tú tienes que saber TDD, programador, desarrollador, full stack, etcétera, etcétera. Las pruebas y la calidad están viendo hoy en día estrategias de diseño. TDD, BDD, ATD, sencillamente metodologías nuevas que han surgido de diseño de software orientadas por pruebas. TDD, pruebas sencillas de funcionalidades, desarrollo, cumplo la funcionalidad mínima para satisfacer esa prueba y luego refactorizo o incremental. BDD es muy similar, no tienen que verse desintimidados, realmente es irse más hacia el contexto de negocio porque estamos hablando de escenarios, historias. Y Acceptance Driven Development es llegar inclusive al nivel de cómo funciona la aplicación desde la perspectiva del cliente final, de usuario final, de stakeholder. Entonces, está el tema también de motivación. Y dice cómo yo me puedo ver como desarrollador en el tema de automatización. Y es que, esta frase la pongo así de grandote primero, y es que si a usted le gusta el diseño de software, básicamente es lo mismo. Conforme ha avanzado la especialidad en el desarrollo de pruebas de automatización, la automatización ahora ha requerido la creación de frameworks especializados. Soluciones avanzadas, inclusive, pueden llegar a la página web de Folder, hay una presentación espectacular sobre cómo la prueba de arquitectura solitaria con microservicios requiere nuevos enfoques para coger y atacar la automatización de estos componentes. Nuevos tipos de pruebas, nuevas pirámides de pruebas mucho más complejas, inclusive el desarrollo de inteligencia artificial para realizar pruebas exploratorias, cosas que antiguamente se pensaba solamente se pueden realizar por una persona.
Bueno, entonces como para los de Cuba, que es como el otro lado de cómo voy a empezar a automatizar. Entonces, los de Cuba usualmente sienten miedo por muchas cosas, pero claramente se deben de sentir como una cualidad lo que tienen, que es como saber escribir script de pruebas. Los de Cuba saben escribir script de pruebas, saben toda la teoría de pruebas, saben que son pruebas en caja negra, en caja blanca, saben que son test. Todo ese tipo de cosas lo conocen los de Cuba, cosa que un desarrollador a duras penas es sabido mentar y sabe que existe. Pero los de Cuba tienen como esa mentalidad de que saben que esas cosas existen y cómo hacer un buen diseño de ese tipo de pruebas. Lo que les asusta a ellos es la parte de aprender a desarrollar, de aprender el código, ¿cierto? Pero aquí como el objetivo es como explicarles a ustedes también un poco de que la verdad no deberían de darle tanto miedo, porque el lenguaje es muy amigable, es como Ruby o Python, que pueden relacionarse ustedes con frameworks de automatización que les pueden ayudar. Por ejemplo, aquí les vamos a dar unos ejemplos de los frameworks que existen en automatización, que son Expresso, Robotium, Selenium y Mocha, que pueden utilizarse para múltiples lenguajes. Por ejemplo, Selenium no solamente sirve para Java, porque mucha gente con Selenium de una vez le mete a Java, lo cual es un error cuando alguien está empezando a automatizar y es más a programar, ¿cierto? Cuando meten con Selenium, por ejemplo, lo más apropiado es meterse con un lenguaje amigable como Ruby o Python, porque entienden mejor las cosas, o en muchos casos inclusive JavaScript, que a veces es como más viable también en muchas situaciones, ¿cierto? Por ejemplo, aquí les vamos a dar unos ejemplos como para que se sientan un poco más familiarizados pues, como con la situación de codificar en procesos automáticos, ¿cierto? Entonces, por ejemplo, aquí hay un ejemplo muy sencillo, por ejemplo, de Ruby. Hay muchos que pronto tienen, otros que no. Entonces, aquí esto es básicamente utilizar un framework llamado Selenium, que es el que permite hacer pruebas automáticas en UI y manipular, digamos, una página web para que haga ciertas cosas y evaluemos lo que esperamos. Entonces, lo que siempre hay que hacer en toda prueba, ¿qué es? Primero, configurar la prueba, ejecutar la prueba y al final hacer un turnaround, que es como eliminar toda información que se haya generado dentro del ambiente en el que estemos. Usualmente eso es lo que se hace en la prueba, ¿cierto? Lo mismo se hace como cuando uno está automatizando. Uno tiene un before, que es como lo que es antes de la prueba, uno tiene como la prueba como tal, que es el lead, y después tiene un after, que es como cerrar el driver. Lo que es el driver en Selenium es el navegador. Entonces aquí en este caso proponemos un navegador de Firefox, ¿cierto? Vamos a correr este código, pero primero les quiero mostrar cuál es la prueba que vamos a ejecutar. ¿Listo? Entonces, disculpen. No sabía. Tenía conocimiento.
No, sí, lo hicimos en inglés para que fuera accesible en términos de lectura, pero la pronunciación, dado que hay mucha gente que no habla inglés y es más la realidad, decidimos hacerlo en español. Entonces fue como un tema democrático de inclusividad, pero no, digamos, equidad, ¿cierto? Ok, vas a ver lo de
Debería decirle en inglés eso es.
A lo bien.
Comparte frases al final de cada.
Y después Spanglish. Después un poquito de Spanglish. Exactamente. Exacto.
No, es una buena acción.
Claro.
¿Hay alguien aquí que no habla inglés?
Pues la cosa es que les pueda dar la preparación si ya lo tienen.
Amigo. Pues solo para hacer un análisis. Tipo como para navegar una cosa. Listo, entonces lo que vamos a hacer acá es lo siguiente, esta pruebita de automatización. Lo que va a hacer primero entonces es ingresar a esta página, ¿cierto? Esto es lo que hace la prueba de automatización como acordar. Se va a meter a esta página. Ah, sí, es la que tal. So we're going to access this page. So in the automation test, we're going to access the page and then test when we go to the about page, okay? So when we go to the about page, the automation is going to click the about button and is going to evaluate if the content header says about neighbor. That's the automated testing. In fact, it's nothing hard that it's going to test. It's going to open a link and test that the content header is already about neighbor. So we are going to show the code and give you an example. This is
Yeah. So you need to meet up.
No, Okay, so here in the code we have before we had the Selenium driver being created. We created a managed timeout implicit wait. It's basically what we tell the driver that it has to wait before an element appears. So if an element appears after 10 seconds, the driver fails and sets an exception. Okay? Yes.
In order to test it on different browsers, we'll have to do like different tests, or
that's actually what we're going to talk about in the other test. That's something that we're going to talk about in the other test. This is something that is like a script that is simply test. All right, and then in the other one, we're going to do something with a more architecture, a more architecture type, where we get the capability to choose the browser that we're going to work on. It's not only Firefox, we can also use Chrome, Internet Explorer, because all the. This is going to be in the next one. Sorry. These only 2 tests are going to be about Selenium. Because it's easier to show. It's easier to show, and the other ones are going to be about Gherkin, so we're going to show Ruby, and again. Yeah, no problem. So here the test is going to open the Nibbler zip tight, and it's going to basically find an element that it has the about link, right? And it's going to click it. After that, it's going to find an element that has the class content header, and after that, it's going to do an assert. If you guys have managed to use the unit, you know the assert evaluates a test. If it's what it's supposed to do, the test is cool. If it's not, the test is bad. Okay. Any of you have used something like the query, CSS, CSS selectors? Selenium is based. Its base is jQuery. So to find elements, you use stuff like jQuery. You have the ID, for example, you can use the CSS selector to do the hashtag ID of the element. Or you can do, if it's a class, you can do the point, the dot, content header, or something like that. It has other types of selectors. It has the link, that is, for example, a link that it has the text, like in this case, it has the about. And the other one is the class, which is, in this case, it has the class content header, right? So we're going to run the test. Yeah. So here is opening up the Firefox driver and open the about page. It was really fast, right? Wasn't really visible the whole time. That was one of the main objectives of automation. Do a fast regression test, and mostly a smoke test, so it doesn't take too much time. All right. And so I know it's a little bit hard to understand at the beginning, but it's really easy when you get the hang of it. Okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know Ruby, but I mean, this is Ruby, right?
Yeah, it's Ruby.
Click is an attribute or method? If it doesn't have a parameter, you can just call it.
No, yeah, it's a method. Yeah, it's a method. It's a method that you call. And in fact, I'm going to show you later in Java that it's more visible because you have the 2 parentheses. Yeah, it's more visible. But it's Ruby. Ruby tells you that, oh yeah, it has a method, so you can do the click method. Or it has a text, then you get the text. For example, in the header text equals driver find element, you find the element, but you also get the text that it has the element. In this case, it has the about Nibbler text. You saw it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gets that text as a string, and you evaluate the string. If it's the same that you expected, the test passes. If it's not, the test fails. Basically that. The other one is with a little more of architecture. You saw the other one that it was basically a script, a series of codes, lines of code doing something. This is with a little more of architecture, or as you call it, remote order. So here we use something called the page object model. Any one of you have heard of that? No? Well, the page object model is something actually really used in Selenium and with all these kind of tests. It basically uses the abstraction of a page, and when you abstract the page, you can describe every element of it. So you basically create a page as an object, and you define every object, every element of the page in that object of the page. All right? So when you create it, you have everything in a single part. Why do you do that? Because it sounds like a really hassle. Well, imagine this: not all the applications stay the same. So if you have the same selectors all the time, they're going to fail eventually because developers are going to change some stuff. For example, they change the classes, they change the ID, they decided to change to Angular, which doesn't need ID most of the time. So you need to be prepared. So in case that happens, many tests are going to fail. So you know there is an abstract for that page where you can change that fact. Okay? It becomes much easier. And also it has a helper, which is like a facade or something like it tells me like, hey, you know what? I got all the pages. What do you need to do? So the helper in this case has open the about page. It's a really easy to read method. What it does, it opens the about page, right? And as well in the assert. In the assert we have a helper that is expected page. So what it does, evaluates if the expected page is present with the text. I know the name is a little bit hazy, but that's the idea. So I'm going to show you the code for each one of these. And if you guys have any questions after that, after we run the test, please let me know. Yeah, sure.
Isn't it better that the about string is in a
Which one?
Like about people name.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
The string.
So we created upstairs as a collection. Yeah, I thought of that at the end. Yeah, that's Java architecture. Yeah, that's the creation of the test. Yeah, I forgot about that when I saw it. Yeah, I forgot about that. You can create the string as a static string as a global variable of the class. You can do that.
One important thing that I can recall here is that actually when you okay, so one thing to recall is actually, well, you know, when you create an application and you have with your client, with his business drivers, you have to choose between some quality attributes, and you should like maintainability, performance, accessibility, some stuff. In a similar manner, you actually have to pick those quality attributes in order to make a successful development automation software. One constant thing that you have to keep in mind in automation development is actually maintainability. So what Juan Camilo mentioned before, the page of the parent is a parent that emerges as a necessity, and it's to decouple the changes that happen in pages from the test. So okay, the page can change a lot. Doesn't matter. I'm going to handle those changes in my object parent object, page object parent object, and the test is going to remain the same. So the behavior is the same. We don't change the test, but changes is the page object. And that pattern can be replicated in many forms today. We're doing JSON schema, for example, to validate in APIs. We can decouple systems by using stubbies. Martin Fowler talks a lot about it. And what happens is that new quality attributes emerges. The other one I mentioned was performance. And why we need this, we're going to explain a little bit later when we see continuous integration.
Okay, so let's check the code. So can you?
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. There we go.
Then you have.
Okay, this is the base code that we have on the slide. So it shows the before, the test, the after, everything that we explained. But here I'm going to show you the about page, for example. There we go. And this is the about page. And the about page basically has all the elements in the about page defined. So in this case, we have the header element that it has. It is defined by the class name content header. Yes, and we also got a getter, so we don't have to create a getter method every time. So I created a notation for that. And here in the main page, we have a link, the about link, the one that is being clicked. So we have the getter defined by link text, usually the locator that is easier to find a link, and we create the element for it. And here is the helper that is the one that is being used in the test. Here. Here we have the helper that it has defined all the pages that we have at the moment, and defines a little bit of some methods that we need for the test. And one of the reasons for this also is to let the test only test, not have anything in the middle of it like clicks, get text, nothing at all. It's basically to have something specific, some steps that you can do. So in the test, we have we call in the test, we call the open page, and we call the expected page. It's basically all it does, and it doesn't have anything about Selenium. It just worries about the test. It's one of the things that is really important for this. And what you asked earlier about the driver, I have it over here. I have a static driver, a static object for the driver. So you can create a static object every time you want, and you can also have a configuration properties when you specify which browser you want to use. I have it hard-coded here, but you can create that easily, and you can call it every time you need. It's really easier this way. And let's run the test to see if it works. Oh, here's running the Maven test. I need the Firefox driver and do this, and that's the same that it is with what it did with the Brick project.
Okay, do that lower apparently. I'm very reason to Ruby maybe. Anyway, there is introduction of a couple of new tools here and a couple of new features that are emerging in the creation of test frameworks. You see that we use a tool here which is called Maven, shorthand MDM. And it's basically a Java tool to manage dependencies and to automate tasks. And it's used along with test frameworks to generate reports. So test frameworks usually enable you to define tests. And one common output of test frameworks is actually to generate reports in some common structure. The objective of this is that you can actually work with the reports in IDEs, for example. They will run the reports that can be integrated with, for example, some report tool like recent reports or this kind of thing. Better return back to the presentation.
For example, it's not powerful that report it's the wrong file, something like that.
No, absolutely. You know, for example, maybe you export these reports into XML. XML can be easily read into HTML reports. There are many tools in that. Actually, one popular tool, Jenkins, which is used in Java and many environments, can actually read the reports and present a beautiful presented report with colors and stuff formatted through HTML. This is because we're generating a common language for reports. So, well, let's try it. That's what happened.
Yeah, we just did.
So when you read about BDD and automation tests, you're probably going to cross with the term gherkin. And well, don't get confused with the first definition in the internet to Google for gherkin because you're going to find that gherkin is a cucumber. The reason because this is there is a popular framework for automation testing, which is called cucumber. And define it as a pseudo language. And the pseudo language actually try to group all the concepts that actually constitutes the good making of automated test. So the idea is to actually to reduce the gap between all the stakeholders. We call them business analysts, we call it project managers, developers, QAs, and try to get together into the functionalities of the product. So through a common and simple language, we're going to define what looks like an history. So we tell them histories to define the QA scenarios. And in the histories, we define features. And in features, we define some steps. So what you will find in some examples on the web is, for example, this wonderful example in Ruby. So another language is pretty similar to Ruby. That actually describes history. And you start to narrate it. So what happens here is I have my spec specification. Specification is a shorthand to say I want to tell history. And between history, I have some feature. So for example, I'm going to test here polymorphic behavior of multiplication operation between some data types. So I'm going to say that I'm going to have an initial state of the system. So I'm going to use a keyword which is going to be given. When I use given, I say, hey, my system is on this state of this one thing that was happening. When a stimulus happens, this happens across many tests. So there is a scenario, you always write, when you are test ready to present a scenario, then a stimulus happens, and then an expected result has to be evaluated. And with this framework, there are many flavors and tools. For example, in this case, in Ruby, we have Aware, with an addition to make data-driven tests, and allows me to simplify what this will be like a set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tests separated into a very short test, and just generate them an history. Of course, there are languages that allow somehow to write it more clearly and more decoupled from like the developer language. Somehow you can read. What happened in Ruby is that, okay, you have documentation, mixture up with code. Here you have the documentation, and it's going to be mixed up with code, and it's in JavaScript, and JavaScript has this completeness. And the creators of Cucumber, of course, has the more impeccable look of the language.
Yeah, it's really well looking. It's better than the mess. Sorry, not that. I'm joking. Yeah, the thing about Cucumber is just that allows a better look at the test with a more BDD look, creates a story, for example, as they call it in JDH, for example. So here the story are now called features. So in this case, a feature will be the showcase of a simplest possible Cucumber scenario. So let's imagine a scenario. We have a Cucumber, right? And we have a, yeah, you can pass, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, and so here we have a simple Cucumber scenario. Basically, we're going to cut a Cucumber. So in BDD and Gherkin, we only have like 3 verbs mainly, which are given, this is the setup of a test, when, it's the execution of the test, and then are what is expected of the test, what the assertion is. The ands are to add more of those. For example, that then I have 2 cucumbers and both have 15 centimeters long, it's another then, right? So when you use multiple ands, you're practically referring to the superior verb. So here we have, given a cucumber that is 30 centimeters long, we have 1 cucumber that is 30 centimeters long, is the given, is the setup of the test. What do we need for the test? A cucumber. Here you have it. Then you do the when. I know it's confusing. I cut it in half, right? So that's the method that is going to test, cutting the cucumber in half, right? And it's going to do the then after that. It's going to test that after you cut the cucumber in half, you're going to have 2 cucumbers. And also that the method cut a cucumber cuts the cucumber in half perfectly. So both cucumbers are going to measure 15 centimeters, all right?
Of course, there is now the silver bullet. You have this beautiful language here. Now you have to translate that into a way a developer can actually make that automatable. And what happens is you have to do regular expressions, and that's where the complex starts.
Yeah. Well, this is basically the translation of every step into code. This is an example of Java. All right. It's a little messy in the other hand because I didn't have any space. Sorry. So basically, in the right, you have the scenario functionality about the link of the about link. So we have the given. I access the Nibbler test page. So we go to the left, on the upper side, we see an at given. I access the Nibbler. You see the same text that is there is in the given. Yeah, it's basically the same. So it uses regex expression to go to that place. So when it detects that method, I executes it. Okay. It's the same for when you do the when. When you do the when, it looks for everything that has an at when, and it has the same text that it has over there. So in example, it says, when I click the about link, the when is going to be, I click the about link. And it's going to execute the code that is on the side. Right? And it's the same for the then. The then expects a text, and the text is going to receive it in the cucumber step. This is called step definitions in Cucumber. It's really easy to be done, and the only difficult part is to really think about the steps that are going to be in the application. So there is another thing. they are also reusable. They are not going to be used for only one test. You can also write another story that uses, for example, the first given. You can use another story that has, for example, a given I access the Nibbler test page when I pick another link, I don't know, any other link, you are reusing the first given. You're not using another one. You're using that. So it's really useful for example, for someone who doesn't have a knowledge of the code to use those stories and create a story based on those texts. It's really easy for them.
So the idea is actually, they imagine that you want to work collaboratively with some test writers. I want to test these fluent histories. And there's going to be a developer in the dark corner making regular expressions and implemented like the magic behind all those languages. Anyway, as you can see, an automated test works as a tool for documenting scenarios, have a track and history of functionalities in an application, and somehow reduce the gap between the stakeholders. Everything depends on actually how you manage the integration of this test.
Hey,
Yes.
the two parentheses in the regular expression map to the parameter in the function, or how do you get the?
Yeah, it has the parameter that is in the quotes. You see then about Nibbler? It's a regular expression for it.
The two parentheses are a capture expression in regular expression. So it captures that value.
Quotes are
Yeah. The slash quote you see then in the expression. The page has the text slash quote and the parentheses dot star. That's a regular expression for quotes about Nibbler quote. You can also use, for example, D or something like that to get a number. But I use the quotes because it's easier to see that way.
What if you need to strings?
To strings, you add another one like that.
Yeah, that's
Exactly
what you
the
use.
same.
Yeah, that's what you use. You have to learn regular expressions, and you can use two capture groups. So you will get those two capture groups, and what the Convert framework will do is translate that into a parameter in Java. So you just modify the regular expression and add another parameter to the signature of the method. And you're ready to go. The thing that I offer is that actually Cucumber is in many languages. So it's just with Cucumber, it's Word Cucumber. There is, I don't know, Python Cucumber. There is almost in any language you can actually get in the market. So one little small introduction, because it's like I always spoke at the chat, is the theme about continuous integration. So what happens with continuous integration is like creation of a process that allows me to leverage the aggregated value of the company, like improving the way I can actually deliver a product into production. And one key part there that is not solved, which is test. Actually, to empower this process is actually the test. And the idea is that those tests, the idea is that those tests are going to be executed quickly, are going to be reliable, are going to be maintainable, are going to be executed fast, so I can have ultra fast feedback about the application and continue working in the development of new features, of changes, of bugs in a company. So, you know, as it looks like a little piece in the chain, it's actually very important. So the well continuous integration process just allow to work, allows to increase the quality of the product, and a key element in the chain is going to be the tests. And those tests how can be empowered through automation. And a consequence of continuous integration, you know, start to grow concepts. It's continuous delivery.
The continuous delivery is almost the same as continuous integration. The difference is that every 1 or 2 days there is a deploy to the cloud. This is mostly used for cloud applications. So when the developer commits a code, and about 1 or 2 days it's already in the cloud. So the only one that is testing those deploys are automated testing. The only ones. There are mostly no manual testing until they get the feedback when the users are using the application. This is mostly done by them, but it's still like a really feeble in the automation testing stuff. But we really wanted to show you that it's more than continuous integration.
of course, like, oh, sorry, the world is going to
sure.
crash. The thing is not to leave you without like an example,
Yeah.
and the thing is,
Yeah.
you know, there are tools as maybe exist to automate tasks and stuff. There are some tools that actually help in the task to actually perform a continuous integration process. Unpopular to Jenkins. So what you will find in Jenkins is just a number of applications that allow you to create tasks, which tasks can be automated, and is the common case that actually these tools allows you to create any kind of task in any language through the extension of plugins. So for example, we have three different kind of languages here, which are three different tasks, one for Groovy testing, one for Java with Selenium, another one for Ruby with Selenium. We can be easily run like directly, or can be actually configured to be executed like listening to changes in the repository when I deliver a release. The code is available on GitHub. We're going to let that information in the presentation page. This is our hand of the talk that we wanted to show you somehow that this can be that all this work that we've done can be integrated easily with these tools. And actually, in all these cases, not depending only on Maven, which is a common thought, and depending on our spec for Ruby, I can actually create also tests for Node.js with NPM. So it's quite easy to use. I mean, it's just there.
Yeah, it's just there to work. So, okay, so we are in the part that we tell you that automation is cool. Yeah, sure. But as a stable work option, yeah, but that depends on everyone. That doesn't like, yeah. But here I was going to tell you something that there is a lot of job offerings in automation there because it's something that is just like starting and everyone is like dropping on it because it's one of the cool things that it improves development really good, finds bugs really fast. People are using it in every ways. So there are companies like, for example, Google and YouTube. They use Selenium for the UI testing. You guys. If you guys have used Uber, for example, they use something called Octopus. It's a framework that they created for Espresso, that is an automation for Android and for iPhone, and Robotium, that is for Android. There is a framework for both. You can use them to automate those kind of applications. So it's something that allows you to automate two mobile applications. So, for example, the driver and the passenger, and lets you automate those kind of things. So it's really cool, and they are already actually investing a lot.
What you will see.
Also Netflix. They use Chaos Monkey for the testing, and they basically create multiple instances, and in those instances, they start load testing, regression testing, UI testing. They do all that with all the IWS they use. Yeah.
What happened in the market too is just you're going to start to look for weird jobs somehow. Of course, there is a job saying, "Hey, automation developer, once a month." There is, for example, SDET, which I mentioned before, software development engineering testing. I'm going to require you to actually know how to develop software properly. They're going to appear, for example, test architecture. And you say, what the hell is that? And what will happen is that, as applications, architecture, patterns, and styles evolve through time, so is the way that you actually have to test them. So you will find that in the task of actually creating automation, you will have to create more patterns, you will have to create strategies, and you will have to evolve the way you're working. So I personally believe a lot in automation works as a stable production because I think it's growing. It's happening now, and it's getting more adepts in time. Somehow it's silent, but from the perspective of big companies, sometimes a couple of companies we're working on, I see that they are hidden because it's not like, hey, we're doing automation probably. They're hidden, but they're actually doing it because they actually need it for our continuous integration processes and to deliver the best value to the customers.
And Google just started doing a yearly conference about automation. They're really cool. If you guys want to watch them, they're all over YouTube.
So to this point, that's all. If you have any questions, we're all ears.
Can you please go get closer to the microphone?
Please stand up and come to the microphone.
It's your time to be famous.
Okay.
15 minutes of fame.
Well, we're talking about unit testing, integration testing, and UI testing, right?
Yeah.
What about end-to-end testing?
That's also,
Well,
that's also in the services layer.
end-to-end?
It's also on the services layer.
Well,
I think. I don't know.
you know, the parameter of testing is like a guide, like to try to keep in mind the scope of the test and the importance you have to give. Certain testing is like in the top of the parameter. That doesn't mean that it's not important, because those test cases and automation of those test cases is the ones that give more value to the company. But you have to keep that in mind. So it's the ones that give more value to the company, they have to be few and have to be the most important. And those are very hard to maintain because those are end-to-end. Many elements involved in the way.
Yes, because I was working in a project where we have the backend in Python Django using Tastify framework. It's weird, yeah, I know. And in the front end, we have Express services connected to the backend using Angular 2. So what's that? Something really weird.
There are interesting jobs, as I told before.
Yeah, and the client was asking us for end-to-end testing, like, hey, what the hell, how can we do that? We have, well, Selenium was the first time that I tried to use that. And for Selenium, okay, I know that is like a jQuery, you say that, jQuery or CSS selectors. But how can I expect a response from the backend if I have to set the database? If for
example, when you need to wait for a table to be filled, you usually use waits. Waits are the best way. The driver has a wait. Some of the drivers have a wait.
They can wait to
wait for something to appear.
But you have to be careful because you don't like non-deterministic tests. Tests that sometimes fail, sometimes not.
Okay.
So you have to add some strategies. Actually, I really recommend Martin Fowler's page. There is actually a file.
Can you give me a link in the Meetup?
Yeah, I just like to try until there is a limit, the whole timeout limit, and you will catalog that as a
Okay. For this case, sorry. Actually, there was proposed us that we can use a production database or a test database for that. What is better?
Well, when testing, you will probably don't like to use production database.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless if you're doing like a second test.
A dummy database, you can use H2. H2 can be.
Yeah, but you can actually do that. It just depends in the scope of the tests and you're going to keep in a bad manner database. Actually, that's a good idea. And it's like they call the golden tests because they actually can move a test and execute in different environments. That's one other quality attribute of the test that they can be portable. So when you execute it in a local machine for a person, a developer, work in a TD way. It can be executed in a QA environment to verify and do regressions. To be executed in production to verify that everything that cares to the user, to the customer, is working okay. But then you have to be careful in which test can be executed.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Someone else?
Okay. So let's say that and I guess this applies to different people. You have a code base of 10-year-old code base, right?
Legacy code.
So yeah, it's hypothetical, right? so yeah, for example, we have that situation, and it is thousands of lines of code, and there are no tests at all, right? So since the idea is to provide more value to the customer, how would you approach the customer and sell this idea of introducing tests like, hey, first where do you see the value? I guess it's obvious, but still, how would you sell that to the customer? And also, where would you start with unit tests or more visual tests? Or yeah, like if you're probably injecting regressions, then what is the best approach? Like starting with unit tests or integration tests, or I don't know. Like I'm just trying to get your insights or yeah your ideas. And since you're dealing with the customer with this, and I don't know how this started. If they proposed to use tests or it was your proposal, your idea. Since we want to include that in our project, but
Yeah.
yes, sometimes it's hard to sell and yeah, to convince the customer.
The hard thing to do is try to change culture in a company, and probably we see that in every disposition of software methodologies. Well, actually, one thing that I remember from a dear professor I had is that actually you have to introduce that by example. And what happens nowadays is that if you participate in an agile team, you're going to create probably a new code, and that new code can be created following these new design methodologies using TDD. So you're going to introduce a little tests, and what you can actually tell to the client is compare. We created these tests, we're having lesser bugs than the existing functionality. We probably need to go into this site. The other approximation is the test pyramid, which says, okay, we probably have a lot of unit tests which occurs as a consequence of working with TDD or BDD. Of course, working with BDD, you have a set of unit tests. But it's not like, oh my God, I need to implement all those thousands of tests and then focus on these ones. Actually, in this case, you need to go from a top-down approximation and try to develop those big acceptance test cases, which gives more value to the user. So the probably, I don't know, and it's my guessing because I didn't have the opportunity to have a client so stubborn like that. Actually, all of those get into testing thing. But the thing is actually we can show that we can deliver into production with more confidence because we have the best return of invariant test cases already there. So we don't have a person there. We don't have the fear that probably that person is going to commit some failure that already is working there. And then you're going to gradually introduce the other tests that are going to happen. In that case, if you have all code without tests, start with the top of the pyramids.
And the unit testing of 1,000 and thousands of lines of code could take a lot of time. So he could say like, it's been a month and you haven't been done yet. So he's going to say, hey, where is the value on this? It's been a month and you haven't done anything. The important thing is, I think, is to deliver something that gets the value the fastest way. So the top down would be a really great option, I think.
If you have like a big project that 10 years ago you started to write, so there is always a lot of features. When you try to inject new features, these features fail. So it's not only the big features, the most values, the most common feature to fail when you try to introduce new features. You can start there and introduce tests because these features are failing and you want to know where are failing.
Gracias por la curiosidad.
That way you want to say, hey, you break the feature.
So you start like writing new code, start doing it right. It's 10 years old, but start writing tests first.
I think when you have a system like that, it's very hard to introduce unit tests because we're not there from the beginning. Unit tests is bottom up. You give it a big system, so it's hard to write unit tests. The way you approach it, you have to take them top down, look at the system level, test it at the system level. Because the system level test, that will help you to find regressions. Test it to a system point, then and value that to find regressions. So if you make a fix or anything, those tests will show you where the regressions are. But then you can start decomposing that after you have your regression tests. You have a high-level test, system-level test for some feature that's broken. You introduce code that breaks the feature. You can then use that to find regressions. And that's a main value to find regression. Any feature you add might cause regression, and you test to see if you figure that out. That's value add. Once you can find regressions and iterate, make your always faster. So when you start a system, you can never start with unit testing. Wherever you start, you can't. It's not granular enough to do testing. But the regression testing will help you refactor. Once you have the regression test, then you can start refactoring confidence. You need something with breaks that you know that they will.
What do you, I think that's the best part about testing, because you are confident about coding, breaking.
I think that's the main value of testing is to show regressions.
But if you are facing like a project, like a 8 years old project that has no testing at all, how do you feel comfortable about finding those things? So I think the best approach is like to start testing the things you are going to start modifying, and then like having a start. It's just like to have at least some coverage, some testing coverage.
Yeah, it's more test coverage. The high level system level, because you can't do
That's very level.
Maybe you can start with functional testing instead of
Exactly, like a high level, like user.
Yeah,
and other bodies workings.
At least it will give you some warnings about something.
And another thing I like to say is testing is great, but testing has a cost. So there's always, just like adding comments to your code, I hate comments in code. Once the comment in the code and the actual code functionality can actually change. Because code changes a lot, but the comment doesn't. So you change your code and now your comment is out of sync with the code. Misleading comment is actually worse than no comment at all. So I'd rather have a code that is expressive versus than adding code that's obscure and you have to add comments. It's the same with text. There's always a cost to adding text. Yeah. So you have to balance it, what to test and what not to test. And I programmed my main focus has been Java, and since moving to other languages like Ruby, Scala, and now to Clojure, my number of tests I put code in Clojure has reduced by 90%. Mainly because the language has a different approach. It wasn't mentioned here, but it's called REPL. I don't know the term. It's a REPL-based testing, where you want to know what REPL is?
REPL.
Yeah, REPL. Yeah. Ruby has one, IRB. So you test everything in the REPL, and it allows you to compile the code very quickly. What I used to do with unit tests, now I'm doing everything in REPL. And when I get it right, then I formalize it to a test only to detect regressions. Other than that, writing like in Java, you have a whole two ceremonies. Even like the Cucumber, I think Cucumber is bad because testing is for coders to read, and now Cucumber is trying to write it in English, so that non-English people or non-coders read. Non-coders will never read the Cucumber script. So I think Cucumber is completely useless. That's my opinion. I'd rather have system code to read versus if I'm trying to understand test. I don't want to read the English version, like small and succinct. And Cucumber is trying to put too much ceremony around the test, and I don't like it. Yeah. So there's always a cost.
More ceremony, more cost.
Yeah, that Cucumber adds too much ceremony.
I guess it works for this part of communication with the customer, because
The customer is not going to read a Cucumber. A business analyst is not going to read a Cucumber.
They propose that.
There is someone that's going to appreciate you having Cucumbers.
Yeah, that person is not going to read it. Right? I guarantee you, a business owner or a customer is not going to read it. One's going to read it and make things going to be a coder. And me as a coder, I'd rather have 16 code assertions, function calls versus English.
I have another question. Since you guys work with this on a daily basis, do you guys also automate security tests with this sort of things?
Security test.
I don't. I never automated a security test.
And then we see now that sorry can be automated.
Integration tests. So another thing that going from Java and now to Clojure, I find that I used to do mock objects all the time, and it sucks. Now I don't have to use mock objects because Clojure, I'm dealing with pure data. that the concept of list is awesome because it deals everything as data. There is no higher abstraction in data. In language with OO, you're actually putting abstraction on top of data. Like instead of in Java or in old language, so you have a person, you define first name, last name, age. You put an abstraction on top of that. But there is no higher abstraction in data. In enclosure, you just have a map. Right? So there's no need for mock, it's just pure raw data. And then for security, for example, what comes in is just data. You just test whether it's, you just at the level, just write the authentication object. There's no map. And test it there, there's no mock object, just pure data, just a pure map. So take a data-centric approach to your testing. And then you're starting with old language, you're just dealing with a whole bunch of classes that are nothing more than maps. And I think all tries to abstract data, but data has no higher abstraction than data. So what you really need is data, just these sequences, like this. You need associate relationship with a map. That's all you really need. List sets and maps. And you don't need to build higher abstraction than that. But in old languages, they force you to build a higher abstraction than on top of data. That makes testing more difficult.
But how would you approach, for example, testing for cross-site scripting on that data? Since I saw that these guys were grabbing the input fields and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that maybe you could automate the cross-site scripting test.
Never tried it.
No, but the thing is, if you want to do the test for cross-site greeting, you have to know where are the cross-site greeting sessions. You have to take the tokens and we try to talk to the server. Because you are emulators to your clients, so you have to make the same behavior with the JavaScript. You can do that. Or you can submit the entire form because the tokens in the form.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's cross-site request for you. You're talking about that.
Yeah, because to avoid the process script by create tokens to be sure that the client is sending the same you render before.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Can you please come closer to the mic?
This is sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I manage a couple of websites in WordPress that is high traffic websites. We have to implement some cache layers. For example, database query cache, object cache, and HTML cache. Sometimes when you implement cache, some things that is not going to work as you expect. You implement cache, some things when you implement multiple levels of cache, then you receive content that is not updated, or you receive different content, or something happened. How do you think that is the best way to test websites that is in multiple levels of cache? And you have to know what is the real content, the update content, and compare against the content that you are receiving. You understand how to test that the content that you are seeing is the update content and the right content that provides from no cache version. This is in a WordPress context where you implement several levels of cache. This is
When you say cache, you refer to
cache. How you say cache? Cache.
Cache. Yeah, cache.
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 Cache. Sí.
Ah, cache. Okay. Sorry. Well, it's like
Que reescriban cache. Todo lo que dije cache.
so you have page cached, and you actually have to get the real updated page.
Yeah. I want to know if the content that I am seeing is the update content.
I think that I don't remember well right now, but I think that that information is in the headers. The headers actually says, hey, this page
Yes,
is actually supposed to be updated on a daily basis, or not daily scenes. This is the
Because
modify pages, for example.
no, the hairs, I know.
You modify size, I think there's a header that say this content is modified.
yeah. Say probably you have that information in the header on the page.
I think I get it from your question in time. You say how different is a unit test or a crawler that try to inject stuff in your website, right? The difference is you're writing that crawler. It's not a hacker or someone else who don't know everything about the system. And it's personal for you. To be sure that it's not there is an open door or master open system, because you want to do the full test for everything. Your unit test too much different. A user try to use the open side.
Another thing, you have to distinguish a unit test versus integration test, they're different, very different tests. So when you're testing, you can't test a system that's always changing. From a code perspective, you don't want to test a system that's always changing. You need static data. That's where your mock object comes in. You mock data. You need mock data that doesn't change or that you have control over. But in your case, the system is constantly changing. So that's a different type of test. It's more of an integration test.
So that means that I have to test in another way that is not automated way.
No, that's an integration
will be
test.
automated.
Yeah, that'll be an integration test where you test your piece of code, make sure that it works with your assumptions. And that assumption must be static. If your assumptions are constantly changing, then it won't work. Right? You're testing your system as a snapshot in time, based on your assumption, your inputs. Then you can test that. That will show you regression in your code too. But then you have an external system, and that's really an integration test. And that's a separate type of test. And it could be part of a continuous integration process where you test your unit test, no regression. The next step is to test the system as a whole, integrating other systems. And that will show you problems. And in microservices, where everything's approaching, you basically, when you test your microservices, you have to take static data, like a stream of another service that provides you a JSON feeder XML feed. You have to take a snapshot of that. Then you test it. That would be your own test. But now it has to be you have to test the whole system as a whole. That's where the next step is the integration test. And you're talking about the integration test.
Thank you.
Well, guys, thank you very much for coming from Meetup. This is a space provided by Velocity Partners. We want to take Velocity Partners to also space. I hope you guys enjoy it. We're evolving continuously this. This is how I'm experiment is going to continue improving. We hope you guys to see you again. And it's going to be new adapts. And thank you very much.
Thank you.